Extremely Skeptical, Parenting Through Non-Belief.
We're a married atheist couple raising two wonderful, strange children. We ask big questions, dissect weird parenting moments, and examine how society ignores or misrepresents families like ours. If you're any stripe of non-believer who's involved in raising children, welcome. You are our people.
Our kids have heard all our swears, but yours might not have. So be thoughtful if there were young people listening with you. The kids survived camp.
They survived camp.
They're home.
Yeah.
So this was Camp Quest. And if you want a really detailed description of Camp Quest, we interviewed Katie from Camp Quest back in the winter sometime. I'll link to it in the show notes. But she gives a great description of what they do, and it sounded really cool. And it was, in fact, really cool.
Yes. I am so happy they went. Yeah. Looking forward to sending them next year.
Yeah. Go already wants to be a counselor. I think.
I mean, of course he does.
I mean, so as we discussed in the last episode, they sent lots of great photos. I had no sense of how the kids were actually feeling. When we pulled up, I wasn't delirious yet. We had to wake up at did we have to wake up at 5 to get there for pickup?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is earlier than I like to get up. But we got there in time and we immediately saw Reader and he waved, but when we were out of the car, he did not run to us. He was just hanging with his people. And I sort of felt like that was the best sign about how he felt about it.
I'd say that's fair.
And Go said he forgot we existed. That's
about right.
So Go claims he wasn't homesick for a second. Reader was a little bit homesick for a couple of days, but then was really happy. I think one of the coolest things that I wasn't sure about is once we started talking about stuff, there were a lot of times where they weren't doing the same thing.
Yes.
And I think because they have this crazy counselor to kid ratio, I think it's 2 kids to every counselor.
Mm-hmm.
My sense is it really allowed them to split up and give the kids a lot of autonomy in what they wanted to be doing. So that seems really cool to me that, there were some big things that the whole camp did together, but it really seems like they kind of got to follow their nose and do what was interesting them the most.
Yes. Yeah, that the option of Reader being able to do a makeup tutorial instead of tie-dyeing, I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. Or, D&D instead of boating, or it just seems like there was a lot happening. And now I'm curious because when we recorded about camp, you said you were doing fine. But then after we picked the kids up, you said you were hiding how you were feeling so you wouldn't make me more anxious.
Yeah.
So how were you actually feeling when the kids were gone?
Anxious.
More anxious than you thought you would be?
I'd say that's fair. Yeah.
Did you have any particular fears?
I mean, them getting physically hurt and sick and the camp getting invaded. Basically I was racked with existential dread.
I'm so sorry.
Why? It's okay.
Okay. Next year, I think you can tell me and I'll be okay.
Okay. I will definitely consider doing that.
Okay. Do you think you'll be less worried next year?
I can't guarantee anything. I mean, it's definitely a situation of getting desensitized.
Mm-hmm.
But for all that I joke with you about how hard it's going to be when the kids go away to college, part of that is because I have no idea how I'm going to react. Like I'm around them a lot, and I deal with them, and I'm with them a lot, and we do a lot of things together, and that's really good. And it also means that when they're not around, my life is meaningless, and I have a giant hole in my heart that I have to fill with alcohol. It's a very healthy relationship I have with this whole situation.
It sounds great.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I feel like, in the day-to-day, you're like much more responsible for their immediate safety at all times. So in some ways, handing that over to another person, I can see it maybe even being harder for you than for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think that it's going to be easier next year.
I think,
in general, I think it's going to be easier next year.
I think like knowing that they're okay emotionally, at the very least, will help a lot.
More so, yes. Like part of it, part of it was that I worried that they would be sort of broken by the experience, or that they would get put off of doing sleepaway camps in general. But they had such a positive experience. They wanted to go back right away. It opens the door to them doing other sleepaway camps.
Yeah.
There's a lot of possibilities now that we know that they're at least amenable to it and they can handle themselves well.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting. So you would be okay with them being gone for even more this summer?
Possibly. It just depends on what they want to do. I don't want to force them to do it.
Yeah.
That's my goal is not to like kick them out.
No. I know there's some of these that go for like 4 or 6 weeks, and I don't know. I don't know how, parents might need that, but like if you didn't need it, I would have a hard time with them being gone that long. For sure. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I don't think it was like until high school. Well, the disastrous camp that I went to was 2 weeks.
Right.
When I was exactly Reader's age. But I only stayed for 1 because I came home after the first week. But then I think I did a couple weeks away in high school. And I think that's also when I'd start feeling okay with them being away a couple of weeks.
Okay. All right.
But I don't know. It depends what they want. I just like being with them.
Yeah.
A lot. So.
Yeah. It's completely understandable that you wouldn't want them to go away.
They're cool, interesting people.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, it is Moms from the Future. So when we recorded this, Pops has talked about being neurodivergent, and usually that is not a big issue for us. But one way it has been cropping up is that we think about time very differently. And so when I try to plan things, those conversations often don't go well. And kind of right before we recorded this episode, Pops let me know that the way I had responded to one of those situations had really bothered him and made him feel upset. So I was in a little bit of a weird headspace going into this recording. We're working on it. Everything's fine. But I feel like we did not adequately hype up just how awesome Camp Quest is. So just a couple of things. One, I have talked a ton about Reader and reading and just all of sort of the back and forth there. And Reader came home saying just how proud they were to have almost finished a book and how good it had felt for their brain to have that time away from screens and how they wanted to have more of that. And has it been perfect since then? Has it changed everything? Absolutely not. But like, that was so amazing. And, just how clearly free they felt to be themselves. When we picked up and told them we were picking up Reader and Go, the gentleman checking us out said, "Oh, yeah, Reader, he rapped in the talent competition." And Pops and I were like, "What?" And, they totally had. So it was just an amazing time for them to explore and do things where they could have felt silly or like they might mess up. And there clearly was just none of that stress. And they had the opportunity to stretch themselves, which was so cool. Also, I mentioned my terrible camp experience. That was the one religious camp I went to that sort of put me on the whole path to realizing I was an atheist. And I'll link to the episode that talks about that. Also, in the upcoming section, we're going to talk about D&D. That is Dungeons and Dragons, just in case some people don't know that reference. D&D is Dungeons and Dragons. It's a tabletop role-playing game. And we also talk about DMs, and DMs are the people who lead the story and lead the players through their adventures. And yeah, so I'm going to let you get back to it, and I'm going to pop in one more time at the end with thoughts that I didn't get in because I was in a weird headspace when we were recording. Okay. And speaking of, it led to this amazing thing in our family. Because I kind of misspoke. Camp Quest did not do D&D. They did D&E?
Yes.
So is it Dungeons and Ethics?
Yes.
Okay. So it's sort of like a version of D&D that more focuses on kind of ethical dilemmas.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really cool. They really enjoyed it. And you kind of took that opportunity to run with the D&D thing.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about how that's gone?
It's gone amazingly. Go is completely captivated by the whole process. Reader came up with a very cool character that definitely feels very him. And now one of their friends in the neighborhood wants to make a character and join the campaign. I don't know how necessarily that'll work midstream.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be organic to the narrative. Otherwise, it's going to kind of detract from the boys' adventure.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a whole campaign, which is a string of adventures.
Right.
So it could very well be that at the end of this one adventure that, another character could enter into the story and, start a new chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't decided how I want to pursue this. I do want to encourage. I think that's important.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really like that I finally get to do tabletop role-playing games with the boys.
Because you've sort of wanted to do this forever. Now, when you originally played, were you DM?
Yes.
Okay. So you've always been DM.
Yeah. It's a thing.
I don't know if I knew that.
Okay. Well, now you do.
Okay. So you feel very comfortable in that role.
I feel like I have to because somebody has to, and I don't. It's like me driving the car on all of our road trips. I have trust issues.
Mm-hmm. But if you always did it, I assume it was something you were interested in.
I would love just to be able to show up and play, but I don't know if that's a reasonable expectation. I don't know if I could handle that. So
why?
I don't know. I just like controlling the narrative. Is just something that's fun for me.
And then you were pretty interested by the characters that the kids chose.
Yeah.
What made it interesting?
I thought they were very on point for who the kids are as people and their interests and such, but also that they were really concerned with developing good backstories and playing their characters as they're meant to be played. And, staying true to who their characters are as people, or at least trying to. It takes a lot of maturity, and not all adults can do it either. So to see them making the effort gives me a lot of hope for the future of this endeavor.
Can you talk a little bit about who they chose?
Sure. So, Reader, who loves animals and trees and feels very strongly that they need to be protected, was a druid. But because he likes the idea of elves as far as like physical affect and their appearance and presentation, he chose a drow, which is a dark elf. And so it was really interesting story he came up with where his drow was part of a group that left the Underdark, the underground realm where the drow live, and ended up on the surface. And he was orphaned as a result of this. Or she was orphaned as a result of this. And so she was a drow raised by druids in a forest.
Mm.
And so there is definitely a whole thread of dealing with bigotry, because drow are naturally mistrusted.
Mm-hmm.
They just look, they have black skin and, colorful eyes, and they just look otherworldly. And that can lead to stigma.
Mm-hmm.
And then Go chose a Dragonborn paladin. Now, Dragonborn is like sort of a human dragon hybrid. So they have like dragon heads and kind of like scaly bodies, not as like totally tanky as a full-size dragon, but they're humanoid, and they have breath weapons. But like the drow, because they look scary, they can receive stigma depending on where they are too. But also, true to who Go is as a person, it's a paladin. So you have the Dragonborn paladin, and you have the drow druid. And typically parties are going to have, 3 minimum, but like 4 people. And so the whole 2-player party is kind of iffy in some ways. And so I have to modify what we do and how we do it to make it competitive and exciting and risky, but also reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you have half the number of characters in an encounter, the risk of getting just absolutely trashed goes way up.
Mm-hmm.
Because if one character gets knocked out and then the other character gets knocked out, there's nobody to help like revive people and stuff. So yeah, I know there are workarounds, but this is also their very first game. And so I don't want them playing more than one character. Like, we could have them each play 2, and there you get your 4. But to keep 2 separate characters straight in their heads and actually play them as they deserve to be played.
That's a lot.
Is asking a lot of a 9 and an 11-year-old.
For sure.
I'd rather they just enjoy their first experience. And so I'm kind of nerfing this first adventure so they can get a chance to get momentum, to feel success, to gain skill and experience. And, the sort of training wheels idea, I think, is going to pay dividends, because I really do want them to be sort of captivated by the experience. And so I'm willing to forego giving them real challenges for the sake of them wanting to do this more long term.
Well, and it's going to be intriguing to see, because in like a week. Can't believe it's a week. Reader starts middle school. And one of the clubs they can join, which he has expressed interest in, is D&D.
Yep.
So, like, who knows? This could be
a thing.
Multiple campaigns. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I don't know. Yeah. I can see them both enjoying it in different ways. Like, it makes a lot of sense for Go, given his kind of more fantasy vibe. But
absolutely,
it'll be, I mean, just like what he likes to like read on his own and the games he kind of likes to play fit in very well with the aesthetic of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes. Oh, 100%.
But, you know, like Reader loves the sort of aesthetic of the found family.
Yes.
And it's very much that as well. So, yeah, it's been really fun to see them get so enthused about it.
Yes, 100%.
So I always think it's really interesting how much online media is fractured.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people were talking about something that you kind of looked at that I hadn't heard about at all, even though we both follow a lot of atheist influencers.
Uh-huh.
And that is Catholic Answers.
That whole thing.
Do you want to say anything about it?
So Catholic Answers is Catholic apologetics website, and they produced an AI chatbot with this animated, like, white-haired dude who kind of looks like the most interesting man in the world. It's kind of hilarious. To give him a sense of gravitas or something. Where you use the microphone on your computer or whatever to ask it questions, and it produces an answer. And it's all Catholic apologetics. So it's a lot of, you know, appealing to mysteries and a lot of, like, circularity and just, like, really tired old Catholic apologetics that have been around for a long time. And so a lot of the debaters and YouTubers that I watch, they all engaged with it, and they quickly realized they could make it into a sort of a game. Like, how fast can I make it give a circular argument?
Oh.
Or, you know, that sort of stuff. Like,
yeah.
And it was really hilarious how quickly you can do it, because once you start like talking about all the stuff, like talking about essence and, you know, the Trinity and the separation of the entities versus how they're all one, getting it to contradict itself it was kind of a thing. I think that was Ian that did that. But it was really, really funny to watch how each of them would engage with it in a different way. But it's just like hilariously bad. And it's called, Catholic Answers. Feel free to go to it and ask it questions. Like, you could say, you know, when you're eating the sanctified bread, what part of Jesus are you eating? You know, like, you can ask all sorts of stuff and it'll give you an answer. And I suppose whether or not that answer is satisfying is kind of up to the chatbot's interlocutor, if you know what I'm saying.
Did you get any interesting answers?
No. Like I said, it was like, it answered kind of really in the way that I expected it to, because I've talked to a number of Catholics over the years, and they're like really famous, historically famous Catholic thinkers and philosophers, you know, theologists that have posited a number of different defenses of the faith and its various forms. And those are still, you know, they're still invoked like all the time, because that's what the religion is based on, you know? So it makes sense that they would. But it doesn't mean that hearing that answer again is any more compelling the umpteenth time. You know, if the same answer you hear has a defeater that has yet to be refuted, then it makes it really, I don't know. I don't want to say annoying because that's rude, but I wish that there was more.
Mm-hmm.
I wish there was more meat on the bone. But, you know, like a lot of these arguments, it kind of gets to the point of, okay, and once they start talking about how we can't know the mind of God, because that always feels like a cop-out, to me at least.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like you can slap that on to any issue that you don't want to really engage with and just walk away and, like, wash your hands. It just, I don't know. It feels weird. It feels like it's not an I don't know. It's a, I definitely know the answer is my answer, but my answer is just me pleading the fifth, as opposed to like legitimately saying, I don't know what the answer is.
Mm.
It just always feels like they want to have their cake and eat it too, you know?
Yeah. Well, like that only works if your deity doesn't want anything from you.
Sure.
You know? But like if you have a deity that wants things from you, it's very complex if there's no way to understand it.
Yeah. 100%.
I sort of feel like you get to choose one or the other. So, but unlike other AIs, it did not start selling out the Catholic Church yet.
What do you mean?
Well, didn't like Elon Musk's AI start talking about how bad Tesla or his ideas were or something like that?
Yes, that's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. That was truly remarkable.
So this AI has not broken and started saying,
"Oh no! That's the thing, is that it defaults. It ends every one of its answers with something along the lines of, and that's why this is beautiful and deserves to be revered."
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It makes it very difficult for me to take it seriously, because when you talk to a human being, you at least have the opportunity or for them to engage honestly with the debate. And if they don't know something, they have a chance to say they don't know, to actually say, oh, that's something that's interesting. I'm going to investigate it further. But the chatbot is just there as like armor.
Yeah.
You know, like it's meant to just sell their position and not actually engage. It just spits out an answer in a format and a tone that paints the church in the most flattering light possible. And a lot of people would do the same thing because, you know, a lot of people who would engage in these conversations are doing so because they feel that there's some sort of threat against this part of their identity. But at least you have the chance of talking to a mind that is flexible and is actually engaged in the conversation and has the empathy required to try to see your question from your perspective. And if the question is good enough or incisive enough to admit that they might not have a good answer, they might want to go back and study more or something. Like, yeah. That's great. I love talking religion with people who are able to admit not only that they might not know something as well as they're told that they should know it, but also ask questions or present possible defeaters to my position. Mm-hmm. Like I love talking about contradictions in texts, and I love talking about, you know, the like issues with natural evil. Mm-hmm. 'Cause those are essentially both internal critiques, and to have somebody like give explanations that are ones that I haven't heard before. I don't know. I love that novelty. I love it when somebody puts me in a position where I then have to go back and figure out if my position or rhetoric is as strong as it could be. Because ultimately, I don't like debating.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was deconstructing, I liked to debate because I was angry, and it, that sort of combative nature was a way for me to sort of vent. But at this point, I just don't care.
Yeah.
I don't need it. And so I don't look for it. And in fact, like when I'm talking to somebody else on some like group or forum or whatever about something or another, and then somebody sees one of my answers and like jumps in and starts to try to frame how my responses should be so that they can start a debate without even like the courtesy of saying, hey, are you interested in debating this? Like a human being. Like that sort of thing is like what I used to do. And I'm like, I see it coming a mile away and I just kind of toy with them like a cat. And because I don't want to do it. I'll dance around their desire to debate me all day long because I just would rather have a conversation. Yeah. And so this chatbot is just such an interesting thing because it doesn't, like, I don't know what purpose it serves. Is it there as just like this 24/7 automated way for Catholics who are worried about secularization or something problematic that they heard their like cousin say at Thanksgiving, like to make them feel better? Because it's not going to necessarily win converts because like there's no personal connection, right? There's no emotional appeal because it's just like this chatbot talking robotically, giving the same answers repeatedly. I don't know. It feels really like dystopian.
Well, I didn't think about it the first time you mentioned it to me.
Okay.
But now I'm curious. I wonder if it's going to drive people to other AIs. Like, if it's very repetitive, I don't know if it might backfire. Because, like, if you have decided to go to AI for answers, if it is very repetitive and not personal, like, I wonder how many people are just going to go to one of the other AIs to try the same questions, where they might get, more varied answers.
I mean, or you'll just see more and more organizations post them up so that way they don't have to worry so much about their fan bases getting roped in by conversations that they might consider problematic. They hear a thing, they can run to the chatbot and then feel better about their decision to remain a part of the organization.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a really pat answer.
I don't know. I have this, I have this gut feeling. I'm sure there are people that would just go to it. Like, I can so imagine this for Mormons. Because with all of their yearly conferences and things, I feel like there's this like deep culture of getting updates from the Mormon church. So I can totally see Mormons having like an official chatbot to like go and check things.
That makes sense. Yeah, sure.
I think there are a certain number of Catholics who operate that way, but I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like there are a lot more Catholics that aren't as tied to the church in quite the same way. So it's just interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I could see all sorts of organizations wanting to do this, like Answers in Genesis, right? Or they could do one for the what do you call it? The Ark Encounter, Ken Ham's nonsense in Kentucky.
Oh yeah,
the giant fake boat that had the flood.
Yep,
that it couldn't defend itself against. I don't know. Like, it feels like we are on the precipice of seeing, a bunch of these. And I don't know. Like, I'm kind of here for it. Like, I wouldn't mind like having all of these apologetics organizations get one of these, and then you could potentially have one talk to the other. Like, you click the microphone input while the other one is giving an answer and see if they can actually go back and forth
For anybody who watched the comedy show Silicon Valley, this is sounding very much like the final seasons of Silicon Valley.
Yeah, exactly.
Where two like chatbots interacting nearly destroy the universe.
No, like it feels like the right thing to do. And I say that as a dirty nihilistic atheist with no epistemic or moral grounding.
Well, I didn't realize it, but this kind of leads in beautifully to the final topic. So I was on an atheist parenting group.
Sure.
And I don't want to get too much into the post, but there was a post that was interesting because a parent was having an issue. And I feel like part of the issue stemmed from the fact that they had chosen or had sort of not really thought about teaching their kid who was raised in a secular household about religion.
Sure.
And a lot of the answers from parents about how to deal with it kind of spoke to how different families had chosen to teach their kids about religion. Okay. And so we've sort of addressed the topic. I mean, the first book we reviewed is kind of all about this. And we kind of talked about it in our episodes about should your kid be able to pick Jesus out of a lineup and some other things. But it just made me think like maybe we should address directly how we kind of thought about teaching the kids about religion. And I don't know, did you have any strong feelings about how you wanted to address that before we had kids or when they were super young?
No idea.
Had you thought about it or?
I mean, ironically, no. I kind of what I wanted to do more than anything else is to just kind of let them be who they are and figure out what we should do based on who they are instead of having some sort of like prescriptive solution. Like I wouldn't want somebody to do that for me. And so
You wouldn't want somebody to teach you about different religions?
No, but like the way that it would happen. You know, like it just depends on the kid. So in general, I would say yes, but the when and the how I obviously would leave up in the air. Like I was excited to talk to them about all sorts of stuff, but I had no idea what kind of people they would be. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to get my hopes up or to predispose myself to start gaming out certain scenarios because that was like so premature. Like, and it's not fair to them.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I think my mom thought, I don't know, like how much she specifically thought about it, but like for sure, because we did the Christian holidays and the Jewish holidays. So she had like a kid's version of the Old Testament. So we would read that for the Jewish holidays. And we definitely had a children's book about the Jesus story, Jesus' birth and for Christmas and one for Easter. And then she was also interested in a lot of other cultures. So we had a children's book, Why There Is No Arguing in Heaven, which I think has, I don't know which culture it is, but it's like a different set of gods and how they end up making people.
Okay.
And so we looked at some more, other traditional stories of, how the earth began and other things. So I feel like there was a certain amount of intentionality there. And then, yeah, like I sort of expected to think about it more, but I don't know. I thought we might do the Jewish holidays more, but we kind of didn't when the kids were young.
Yes, true.
Except stuff my mom did. And, well, also, so one of my good friends when we were in LA was Jewish. So like he did a Hanukkah party. So we would go to that. So it sort of felt like it was more around us than us doing things.
Yes.
And maybe I expected as things continued for that to be even a bigger thing. But I sort of feel like, despite my lack of intentionality, we were saved a bit by another thing we did. So
Okay.
I think we have set up opportunities for the kids to enjoy culture that is a little bit older than what other kids would be watching.
Yes, that is
so
true.
We worked very hard to kind of prepare them to see slightly more adult TV.
And it works. Now we're
Yeah.
watching The Bear.
Yes, which is amazing. Slightly more adult movies, slightly more adult books. And
to their credit, like they are both really itching to be considered more mature.
Yes. Yeah. And we were lucky that they were both sort of down for that. And
sure. But again, to my previous point, like I didn't want to put the cart before the horse. I didn't know who they would be. But as it became very apparent that they were thoughtful and that they were interested in like dialogue about this stuff and learning about these things and trying to be open to both being wrong about presuppositions or beliefs and, maybe trying to apply their innate skepticism broadly instead of put things off limits. It became very, very easy for us to have these conversations with them, to their credit. Like the whole job of talking about different religions and, the value that they have in society and individuals has been a really fruitful one.
But I think where I was intentional is that in consuming all of this stuff,
mm-hmm.
when things came up that were allegorical or spoke to aspects of religions, like I really tried to point those things out
mm-hmm.
and talk about those stories. So I can't even remember when stuff came up the first time, but I just know kind of like in the course of things, we've had a lot of discussions with them.
Right. Well, I mean, you have to remember that they also grew up watching the Marvel movies. And so you see the Asgardian pantheon, right?
Right.
Which are the Norse gods.
Yeah.
And so that was an entry point. And I don't know, like it became easier to talk to them about different ideas of deities.
And then Percy Jackson with the Greek gods.
Percy Jackson.
That really was, it was like.
And the boys read Deleuze. And so mm-hmm. they have a pretty decent sense of Greek myths. So it's just
and now watching Vikings.
Yeah, but they engage with the storytelling aspect of it, and I think that's where their joy comes from, and why it's so easy to talk to them about these things, because they see the value in myths as storytelling. Like they don't disparage a culture's myths just because they're different or they might seem extreme or something like that. They kind of take it as it comes and see why, or at least try to understand from the culture's perspective, extend that empathy and see why they had those beliefs. Right? We were talking about how much the Vikings had like this hallucinogenic, shamanism, where they had a pantheon of gods, but they also like would eat shrooms and try to discern the divine.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting counterpoint, especially in watching Vikings, because then you have, the character of Athelstan, who has such the ongoing crisis of faith.
So Vikings is a TV show that was on for many seasons, and kind of like the entry point where you meet a lot of the characters, and it changes very much over the course of the series. But the leader of the Viking group that you follow raids an English village, and he takes hostage a monk. And a lot of what you learn about them is sort of initially through the monk's perspective and his changing thoughts and feelings about the Vikings.
Yeah.
kind of that outsider's view.
Yeah.
And the head of the Vikings really likes the monk and is like fascinated by him and his religion.
And that's also interesting for the boys to see, I think, because they see two smart characters who are both very open to change. They're open to being proven wrong. And they're just really hungry to learn. They have very poor, like spongy plastic minds. And to see them interact with each other. Then later, King Egbert, right? Always in his bath.
Yes.
You know, they're all cut from the same cloth. They're all kind of ahead of their time. So they exist in the story, but it feels like, as a modern audience watching them, that they are kind of next to the story. And what they're doing is, while it informs the events of the narrative, very much feels like they're having a conversation with us as a modern audience. And I think that's really fun for the boys to see, because then they can see how much the people, even though they might have wildly divergent religious views, might approach the value of faith as an organizing principle, or value of faith in politics and war, or the way that we tell myths, the way that we impart myths with meaning, the sort of meaning that we impart myths with. Like, to see how there are parallels, how there are divergences. It's just like, I love comparative religion, and I love myths, and it's just really fun to see them on their own, kind of, you know, engaging with their own love of it, just kind of in front of our eyes. It's really cool. I love where they're at right now, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
So I guess not a lot of advice for like a real tactical education, but
watch Vikings,
I guess
Marvel movies.
Well, I guess keep
and AI chatbots.
Well, I think no. I think like the thing is, like, if you're interested in doing it, I think my only advice would be, like, with whatever you're doing, sort of like keep your antenna up for moments where you could bring things up.
Yeah.
And just like with anything, like I try to bring up feminism all the time. I try to bring up like
tiresome
issues of, so like, I feel like I always have antenna up for something interesting to discuss.
Sure.
But I feel like, I
and
feel
there
like
are
that's
shows
the only thing that's worked for me is just to like try to keep active, to be like, ooh, this could be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, and there are shows that we've had on our list of things that we want to watch with them for a while, like The West Wing and For All Mankind, where it's going to let us talk more about, a specific moment in history or period in history, and it's going to let us talk about like civics or whatever. Like, it's not just about like religion and myth making. That just so happens that that's where they're at with their development. Myths being these big, larger than life things. There are a lot of opportunities for those sorts of stories to be injected into or to intersect with more youthful fare.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to them getting even a little bit older and allowing us to broaden our conversations. But the methodology, I think, is going to be much the same. Like, we look out for media that will promote conversation, and then we don't shy away from it. But I think it's also important to test the waters. So maybe if you have a kid that is more reserved or has a certain predilection, right? Predisposition, maybe, then watch a little bit of it together, stop halfway through, maybe, and then ask your child, and you pick something really specific, not a general, so what do you think? Because that's like, I don't know how the kid the kid might be expected, they think they're expected to respond in a certain way. But instead drill down on like one aspect of the topic or the subject that you'd like to make that media a springboard for, right? And you pick something specific and you see if your child kind of takes the ball and runs with it, and you end up having this long conversation that derails the watching of the show or the movie, then you know you're onto something because the kid's mind is there and they're interested in the topic. And then you could say, something along the lines of, we can stop watching this whenever you want. And then they would probably push back at that point, be like, no, this is really interesting. And then at the end of it, then you say, was that interesting enough where you'd like to watch something similar? Or if it's a series, like, would you like to keep watching the series as a family? Kids like to feel agency, that they have agency. And so putting the ball in their court is really important.
Though we are also not beyond stopping something and just like telling them about something. I'm not always good at just like making it super interactive. Sometimes I'm just like, hey, this is commenting on this.
Sure. And sometimes they zone out. Sometimes they glaze over. Sometimes they really care.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're able to connect it to something that they already enjoy talking about or whatever. And then it has value. But yeah, there are plenty of times when we sort of do an info dump.
Yeah.
And don't do an active conversation. Though at the end of watching an episode or a movie, that's where we'll, spark up the conversation because we already know that our kids are good with watching the thing.
Yeah.
To its conclusion. We don't have to necessarily stop it to have a conversation in the middle of it at this point. We used to do that in the past.
Yeah. And I think the thing that's been kind of fun is I feel like they've sort of reached that point when they get excited when like they see a connection between things.
Yes.
Or have something to say about something. And that's just cool to see.
Yeah, really.
And I know we may soon reach a point where they no longer want to share those thoughts and feelings with us, but I'm gonna soak up every moment where they are excited to tell us when they think about things.
Sure. 100%.
Yeah. All right, moms from the future again. I realized editing this that in some ways, Pops and I are really at an advantage because we're both kind of geeky about religion and in our own ways have researched different aspects of Christianity and other religions. And so when topics come up, we kind of feel comfortable talking about them. And I just wanted to mention some things that might be helpful if people don't feel like they're coming with that familiarity. Obviously, if you came to atheism by leaving a religion, you probably feel pretty comfortable. But if you came a different way or didn't get a lot of exposure, I had a couple of thoughts. So, one, the show Scathing Atheist. If you don't want to do like a deep dive, but just wish you had like a little bit more familiarity with the Bible, Scathing Atheist has done a funny retelling of at least the New Testament at the end of their shows. So one, they're hilarious. You should be listening to them anyways if you're interested in any of these topics. But you can look at the show notes and kind of see when they start those things. They also did the Book of Mormon and some other things. So is it a deep dive? Are you going to be a Bible expert after that? No. But it's like a fun, really easy, just kind of like, this is hilarious. And now I'll sort of know what some of these stories are. Also, they have not recorded in a while, but there is a podcast called Atheist Bible Study that goes much more in depth with different stories. And then if you sort of have a vague understanding, but if you have a kid who's older and is sort of hearing some like weird apologetic stuff about religion, and that is not your world, it wasn't mine until more recently. Another wonderful person is Dan McClellan. He has a ton on, I see him on Instagram. He probably posts on like other platforms too, but he is a religious scholar who just sort of breaks down different thinking about Christianity. And he also just came out with a book about kind of like how to think about reading the Bible. And he is amazing. And then he also has his podcast, Data Over Dogma. So if you're a podcast person like me, go back, check out those episodes. You can kind of see the different topics they covered. And it's a great way to learn a little bit more about topics you might be interested in a way that isn't too taxing, where you don't have to like pick up a lot of books and work through a lot of information. Also, if you would be interested in more kind of like looking at some stuff that might spark these conversations, I have to admit that like Vikings is really pushing the bounds of what you can watch with kids. I mean, there is a ton of sex and really intense violence, and it is only because we really talk about things and have watched other stuff and sort of gauged our kids' responses that we would even think about starting that show. So it is probably not the best go-to for a lot of families. I will say, if you have slightly older kids, Good Omens, I'll link to it in the show notes, is a show about an angel and a devil that are friends. It is David Tennant. It is just like a great series. It's not too serious. It brings up a lot of sort of funny religious questions about things. So if you have older kids, that could be something interesting to watch to really sort of like spark some thinking about what all this stuff means. Another weird one is maybe for sort of younger kids. I can't remember how appropriate it was. Not like super young, but the animated series Exploding Kittens, the main character is actually God turned into a cat. And there's a demon character too. So really like absurdist, not going to teach your kids a lot about religion, but if you sort of want to like spark some questions to potentially come up, that might be another interesting option. And I'm sure there are tons of shows that I'm not thinking of that would be wonderful as well. But I just wanted to toss those out there. So that is it. And I will get you back to the show. All right. We did it in just like an hour for once. We need to thank Jonathan Zalben and First Frame Music for the music for this podcast.
And that wraps up this episode of The Family Skeptical, where nothing is sacred except for our kids.